Welcome back to Overdunk, everybody, your favorite competitive Pokemon UNITE podcast. This is episode 116. Some would say too many episodes, but luckily there's a few of you hanging on. Thank you so much. I am your host, Zoinks. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Bridjet. And unfortunately, no Deuce Snacks tonight. So we have replaced him with 3 casters from other games. It felt like the only math equation we could put together. We have people representing Pokemon Go, Pokemon trading card game, and the Pokemon video game. Unfortunately, Wonder Chef did decline the invite. No Pokken representation. Absolutely wild stuff out of him. But that's okay. We will remember. He did not deny. He's gonna get mad at me for that. But we will get into the episode in here just a moment. But I wanted to preface, we've done one of these on the channel before, and it seemed like a lot of you really liked it. We are going to be talking about all things competitive Pokemon. World Championships just happened for all of our games recently, so a lot of the early discussion will be about what Worlds was like for each of the titles, and then looking forward into next season for, I guess, again, Unite, Go, VGC, and TCG, because there's changes, there's new exciting things happening, and it's just a lot to talk about. So I'm really excited. So let's introduce everybody, shall we? Let's start with just our co-host, though. Of course, we got the VIP, Bridjet, who I incorrectly said your name on Twitter when announcing this episode. I am so sorry.
I think you like talking about it.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, I have to lean into the bit to defend myself, and now it has become deep lore. Bridjet, how are you? How's your last week been?
It's been really good. I've been actually playing a lot of Unite.
Pog, let's go.
Desperately trying to get the sticker. Don't think it's gonna happen for me, but I helped some friends get there, so it's fine.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, I think you have like 24 hours, maybe? We are very close at the end of the season, if you want to get that rank sticker. Very, very close. But, awesome. Caleb, talk to me. You were on this episode, is it 2 years ago now at this point? That seems crazy to think about.
Was it 2 years ago?
A year ago? I don't know. It was like post-London.
It was over a year. It was definitely over a year ago. Yeah,
that we can agree on. Caleb Peng, Pokemon Go commentator, but also Unite player. Maybe past Unite player. He's switched over to League of Legends. But Caleb, how have you been, my friend?
Doing well. This was actually, on Unite Mics, was actually the first time I commentated a Unite tournament too.
Okay.
So I think I hit you up. I was like, hey, if you ever need a noob caster, I'm here for you. And you're like, hey, yeah, we actually have a spot. So got into some grassroots casting for Unite as well. But big fan of MOBAs. Like you mentioned, play probably too much League of Legends, but also play a lot of Unite as well outside of Pokemon Go. So happy to be here.
Sweet. That's good to hear. Yeah, it's been said a few times, mostly by me. If you want to get into Unite casting, literally just gotta ask me. That's really like, people are like, I need advice on like maybe how to get into it. I'm like, just talk to me and I'll get you on a mic. Like, I really like casting. I really like casting with new people. It's a lot of fun. But Scarzig, we've worked together a bunch on a few of those pre-shows before some of the international events. You were live in studio. But Adam, Scarzig, you have worked very familiar with the TCG side of things, both on the back end and in the commentator booth. So how have you been, my friend?
Been doing good. Just been grinding, getting ready for the next season for sure. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later. Catching up on a lot of work, especially getting back from Honolulu.
Right.
And just working on some art. That's been really exciting. And I was able to squeeze in a short little lap around PAX West, actually. Some friends of mine, some family of mine were going down, and they dragged me along and showed me because I'd never been before. So I've managed to head down there. It was a lot of fun, and now I'm trying to get into work mode, but I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, the switch up from vacation to work, especially after an event like PAX, that's got to be tough. I mean, I really wanted to go. I had a lot of friends going to PAX West, and I was like, that would be so sick, but I desperately need paychecks right now, so it's off to my real life job, unfortunately, which too bad, so sad. Back to the grind. But last but certainly not least, Xeminan, we've had you on the channel a bunch to commentate Pokemon Unite, but first time here on the podcast. Joe Brown, how have you been, my friend?
I'm doing great, just like everyone else, trying to recover still from Honolulu. It's already been a couple weeks. We're already so close to the first regional of the new season. Feels like we haven't even recovered from the last season. But Zoinks, I'm trying to wrap my head around the math at the beginning of the show where you said 3 casters are equating to 1 Doob Snacks. And it's like, are we each 33% of the value of Doob Snacks? Or like, is Caleb 50% of Doob Snacks? And me and Scarzig are only 25% of a Doob Snack? Like, how's the math equate to get 3-to-1 ratio here?
Yeah, I think it's less than baking, more cooking, right? So it's less of percentage that you're taking up. It's more of ingredients that you really put together to whisk up. So cooking, witches brewing, whatever you want to think about it, I think the 3 of you can conjure a Doob Snacks if you put your talents together. I think that's what we kind of that's what we're looking at.
That checks out.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah,
I'd be happy to take 10% of Doobs' talent. You know, that's good enough for me.
Dude, get in line, Caleb. All right, I've been begging for the very same.
Just space jam him. Just
yes,
here,
yeah,
this microphone
in the basketball.
Well, I gotta tell you, I was so jealous when I was watching Unite Worlds, and there was a segment where Doobs was, of course, when you're backstage, right, when you're not on it, and Doobs had a segment where he was eating snacks. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you have a segment, like, I was like hitting on my producer for a go. I was like, dude, why can't we do this? Like, I'll eat all the snacks in the world. I don't care, right? That sounds like a great segment.
Yeah, I think when I might have been talking about it with you, we were discussing that it's really built on the fact that his name rhymes with the noun he's trying to pursue, right? So snacks with snacks really works in a good naming scheme. We talked a little bit about what Zoinks could do, and we basically had like Zoinks with Zoinks, and it would just be like hidden cam a la MTV's Punk'd, and we just try to scare me around the event. Like, that would be the segment. And I think it'd be kind of fun. Now, what can we do with Xeminan, Joe? We need a good Xeminan segment that we can put together.
That's a lost cause. I mean, it's easier with Joe Brown, right? Like,
it could be a judge.
Yeah, exactly. I could judge like people's deck lists or like their like draft comps in Unite or something. I could judge if it's based or not.
That's good. Ooh, I do like that.
Or a gavel.
Oh yeah, I love the gavel. That'd be perfect.
Your personal security guard. You know how there's always security guard in those shows, right? Have one guy just like standing there intimidating, smirking once in a while. Yeah, the bailiff.
Yeah, Scarzig's like, everybody rise. Yeah.
It's good. I'll be the stenographer. I do think that's my role. That's the only other court name I know.
Impressive.
Thank you. Okay, now that we've got introduced to everybody, this is a little intro question I wanted to talk about. I mean, basically to gauge each of our interests in all of the competitive Pokemon titles, right? Like, I have talked on this episode or this podcast quite a bit about how I'm actually a huge fan of the VGC, TCG, and Go communities and the games themselves. I watch almost every single regional broadcast. I really like it. But obviously, Unite takes up more space in the old brainwaves, right? So if I was to talk about a pie chart, Unite would probably be in the like 60 to 70 range, and all the other games probably end up like 20, 30, somewhere in the midst there. Honestly, they probably end up being more. I would say almost 50, and then we evenly split the other 3. How about all of you? Experience in the other titles. Caleb, I know you've played Unite. You've obviously played a ton of Go, but how are your experiences in the other 2 maybe you're more unfamiliar with?
Oh yeah, I think if I would be honest, I would have to be like 50, like 1% Go and 49% Unite.
Okay,
0% others. I played Scarlet and Violet, and then I obviously have a lot of cards. And played some of the like online TCG as well, but I'm like beyond noob in those. Like, I'll watch and people be clapping. I'm trying to figure out like why they're clapping a lot, right? Whereas Unite, I even compete in UCS the first season and do some commentary for grassroots and stuff too. Yeah, we didn't do very good. Every time our team would like win round 1, and then round 2 it'd be like the number 1 seed or be number 2 seed. So I'd be like against Rin or like Blackhand or TTV. Like, I was like, well, at least we get a good like scrim practice here. But it's never a good time. But
get stronger for next tournament.
Yes.
Bridjet knows this feeling intimately.
I too have gotten stopped by TTV in a bracket.
It's tough out there. Bridjet, I'm actually curious about you. Where do you think your distribution is amongst the other games?
Okay, Unite is definitely the most, but I understand how all the other games work. I must say, at least I know, not a big deal. And actually, the first time I ever streamed, like forever and ever ago, during Sword and Shield, was actually me playing VGC, which is kind of funny.
Whoa.
Okay.
I actually really liked the first iteration of Sword and Shield competitive. That was definitely when I was most into it.
Cool.
But
before the
Unite
horror of Urshifu ever happened.
yeah. DLC didn't exist yet. It was beautiful. No one was hacking raid dens. It was a really good time for me.
The grass is greener.
Yeah. Go, I only play PvP when the little tasks make me play the PvP. But I actually have some friends who are very, very into it and like competed at NAIC, so they got me a little more into it. But Unite's probably like, at this point, like 70%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're on a Unite show. We're allowed to be confident about that. It's okay.
I don't know. That's very shocking. VGC probably like. I mean, the others are honestly all probably 10s across the board.
Nice.
I would rate them evenly. VGC probably a little more, but nowadays I don't really know what they're doing. So
that one timeline of VGC.
Yeah, there's one time.
It's got rep. All right, our VGC rep, Xeminan. Same question to you. What's your distribution amongst all the titles?
Yeah, I never thought about it before you asked, but like I think I'm a pretty well-rounded competitive Pokemon player. When I think about it, like I started back in 2014, and back in the day, they would have obviously the VGC and TCG regionals, but they were on separate days. So Saturday was the start of TCG, and that was $20, and then Sunday was just free on VGC. So a lot of people that would bomb out playing TCG would play VGC on Sunday at the same regional. So the first couple of years that I was playing both VGC and TCG competitively.
Gotcha.
So I played in multiple TCG regionals, not well, but I played in them. And obviously all my experience in VGC over the last decade. Pokemon Go actually played at a regional in Baltimore regionals a couple of years ago. I got a lot of coaching from like Caleb and Butters and some of the other Go casters.
Didn't every VG player play in a Go tournament then? Because it was like VGC was on a break and it was a whole thing.
Right, VGC was on a break post Worlds until January, so you had like September through January. So I think a lot of people just took the time off, but a couple players did try to get into Go, and I had a lot of fun. I was hardcore into it. Like I was trying my best to give it my best shot. I remember I was one win away from getting on stream. Like back when the stream it was a different structure. It wasn't like you streamed all the rounds and stuff. So like Jim came up to me, one of the Go casters, and he was like, "Listen, Joe, you win this next match, you're on stream." And I was just like. Just all my momentum, all my confidence just shattered. I was so nervous because I wanted to get on the stream so much. But so I played Go. I played Go at regionals, TCG regionals, obviously VGC, and then I've casted a fair share of Unite grassroots events. So I think maybe I have to go play in Unite at LAIC so I can say I've competed in all four professionally.
That'd be so sick. I can't freaking wait. That event is gonna be so awesome. That's a future topic. It's a future topic though. Scarzig, same question to you. What is your experience like in all four of the games that Pokemon has currently? Oh man, shout out Pokemon. But
yeah. I'm a card gamer at heart. Those of you in the audience who know me, follow me individually, know that that's where all of my content and casting experience comes from. And bridging over to Pokemon, I've definitely entertained the idea of maybe learning Unite or learning VG, and just never really, jumped into it. There's always been just a really cozy home for me in the TCG side of things, especially now that I'm kind of working in front of camera and behind the camera and on the production crew. It's been great, but I have a funny story, too, because I was like, okay, VG with the new season coming up, maybe I will jump in, do some learning. And I went to the Pokemon Play Lab while I was at PAX, and I played a kind of like a practice training match where they teach you the game, how the doubles format works. They have pre-built teams. I was like, okay, this is awesome. I jumped in and got completely destroyed. My team got double frozen. I got hit by Ice Beam and got frozen. Got hit by Blizzard, got frozen. And I know how to take a hint, y'all. I was like, okay, never mind, BG.
Yeah, dang, Joe, your game sounds like a blast, dude. Oh.
The raw compatibility is not there. I don't have an affinity for that game, apparently.
Because, like, Scarzig, he's got all this game knowledge. He's a computer, everything, ones and zeros, everything. And he's like, why aren't dark types weak to grass? Why aren't electric types weak to fighting?
I thought I was Galaxy Brain because I had a Dragonite. I sent it in and then immediately went Terra Steel on the Dragonite to avoid the ice weakness, and then I got frozen anyway. And I was like, okay, well, GG's then. I thought I was
you
like,
got hacked.
I'm a genius. Oh no! If you remember that old meme. That old meme.
Oh, that's so unfortunate.
But yeah,
bummer. I'm so sorry.
It was fun though. I had a lot of fun. At least dabbling in the game. Some of the people I knew from some of the other communities that I've casted for also bridged over to VG, and they love the competition, the skill ceiling, and of course for Unite, I tried it for a week when it first came out back in the day, and now with Psyduck about to come out, maybe we got to jump back in and play the boy.
That'd be sick. I can't wait. That's gonna be really fun. There was a tiny sliver of VGC in the Venn diagram of Scarzig for a moment.
Yeah.
And then he got double froze hacks and just went,
yeah,
bam!
exactly.
Back to TCG. Complete 100% circle. That's a bummer, but that's really funny. Yeah, Joe, I've heard your rant about how the weaknesses in TCG don't make sense, and I always just shake my head because I'm like, does he really not get it? Like how there's multiple types in one category? I'm so confused.
The way they group them.
But it's fine. It's fine.
We're on a Unite podcast here, so we don't have to get into this conversation. But I'll defend myself at a later date.
Okay, good. Grass is bug. You should anyway. It's fine. The only one that doesn't make sense is the Tapu Koko promo for the first Sun and Moon set. Why is it weak to steel? It's fairy electric. Or no, wait. Why is it resistant to steel? It's fairy electric. That makes no sense, and it messes up my GLC games every time. I'm so upset. Anyway.
Or how the fire type Groudon is weak to grass. Yeah, go on. Primal Groudon weak to grass. See, you're coming to my side.
It's a fighting type. It's a ground. It's fine.
Isn't it part rock?
No, it's ground fire, but
it's ground fire. So it should be neutral.
Well, that's why I don't play BG.
Yeah, you could make it weak to fighting. It'd be weird, but then it'd be weak to its own typing, and then you have a primal ground on meta. It'd be bad. Okay. Anyway, whole card balancing conversation later. The biggest event in all of our titles, unilaterally, because of how Pokemon works uniquely, is our World Championships. Were just a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, this is the biggest event of each year, so I just wanted a quick chat of, like, how did everybody's game go? Bridget and I just did a Worlds recap episode for Unite, just last episode, so if you're really interested in our full thoughts on Unite, go there. But for everybody else, Caleb, talk to me, what were the Go Championships like, for people who didn't even watch?
Oh, yeah, it was great. I mean, we had, it was our biggest Worlds to date, in terms of competitors, a little over 200 something, and should be less next year because of the new qualification numbers. So it's probably the biggest one we have for quite a while.
Okay.
And the person to win it all was actually how old was he? 16 years old? No, 16 years old.
Sick.
Yeah, his name's Yakai. He's from Hong Kong, and he's an APAC player. So APAC players in Go have arguably a disadvantage because they only have one chance to really qualify. They have to enter a qualifier, like Swiss rounds, and then go to playoffs for that. And then if they don't make, depending on the region, it could be like top 2, which is, I think, Yakai's case, or like top 4 from India, which is like over like 200 plus players there.
Right.
But if you don't make those like top 2 to top 4 cutoffs, outside Japan's qualification is a little bit different, but outside that, for the APAC regions, you just can't qualify for Worlds. So it's a very hard region to qualify from because you only have one chance. You have to perform really well that one day. Whereas in the North America, LATAM, Oceania, or Europe, you could just try as many times as you can feasibly afford or go to. And sometimes even the local tournaments can qualify you through that without even doing well at an in-person tournament. So very impressive stuff from him. So he won that, and then he won all of Worlds, not dropping a single series. And he's also the first player from APAC to win Worlds. So quite the feat for him. And yeah, it was really impressive stuff. Our second place finisher was actually Inadequate, who's a European player who's also actually a Go caster too. So arguably one of the best players in the world, but also the best caster in Go competitively speaking. So was definitely a good time. Yeah.
I mean, Go is kind of unique in that aspect, right? Like where a lot of you are competitors as well as commentators. Like you qualified for the World Championships this year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you qualified for Go. Speedy was like a world champion, like a grassroots level event, right? Like Inadequate's obviously second place at Worlds. That's crazy. But yeah, Go definitely. You'll walk around with an air of like, oh my god, shoot, they know what they're talking about.
It's getting harder though, because we only have one age division now. Our first year we had a seniors and a masters, but now after that first year to combine it to all masters, and I don't know how it's like for TCG and VGC because I know you have juniors, seniors, and masters, but I don't know like how well the juniors or seniors might fare in a masters division. But for Go, like a lot of our best players are on the younger side. I think something could be said about something like Unite as well, right? Maybe you know, like Overlord being young and like a lot of these younger kids just having faster reaction skills and stuff. So
just more time.
So to play video
I'm
games. Like, that too.
Little.
Yeah, I'm getting a little too old for Go to be competitive. So so it's he obviously would have been in a junior or a seniors division, I think, if that still was around. But yeah, very young competitor, but one of many that are like very young and accomplished in our scene. So
that's cool.
Definitely good to see. Yeah, us oldies like me and Speedish Chief are aging out soon. And, might need to hang up our competitive hats. But
right, well, our game's been in the competitive circuit for just as long as yours, so making me a little worried. But fair enough. Now, one more question for you, Caleb, about Go. So speaking of Unite and Go, we've been in the same circuit for. Yes. I mean, our first Worlds was London. So regionally, what have your world champs been the last 3 years? Because in Unite we had NA, and now Japan. So we've only had 2 regions. How about you guys?
Yeah, so the first year, obviously we had a seniors division and a master division, but both were from Europe.
Okay, cool.
So Europeans were definitely feeling themselves after that one. And then last year, the top 3 finishers are all from North America. So NA was really hyping themselves up.
Okay.
And Europe, I think, was the first one out that season. So there's a little banter there amongst our community about how Europeans kind of fell off a little bit. But this year,
I saw it was good.
Inadequate was second place. He's from Europe, right? And APAC was first place finisher. But I would say there was one of our grassroots orgs did like a little chart going into day number 2, top 32, and they did like percentage of representation day number 2 based on how many people went to Worlds from that region. And Europe was like overrepresented, so they actually did really well this year in World Championships. And obviously, second place is great too. But even getting like they were the top, like I think they had like 20% of their competitors all made top 32 or something like that, which is kind of wild.
But they didn't win.
But they didn't win. Yeah, exactly. And they kind of was a little disappointing. We were the first region out actually this year. Well, I guess Oceania, but they're much smaller. But outside of that,
that's definitely a trend, right? Where NA tends to really set the stage in the infancy of a lot of competitive games of any variety. I feel like I'm seeing that pattern a lot. And then once other regions catch up, that's when they start to eclipse, and then the game begins to evolve really heavily from there. So I'm really excited for Go and Unite in that aspect to see where the games go, just from a raw skill perspective.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. Obviously, competitor for Hong Kong winning the whole thing is really exciting for y'all too. And then Unite, we have definitely not a promise, but a big anticipation for China to be joining the competitive circuit very soon, where in the MOBA genre is a pretty incredible region. So I'm excited for that. Also, huge shout out. Thank you so much for the raid, Tune. Hope you had a great stream. Tune, an unbelievably good competitor in our title, top 8 in Worlds this year. So shout out to Tune Slam.
I've lost to Tune many times.
Oh yeah, join the club. If you played our game
in UCS, I was just like, I used to watch his Aegis Slash videos on how to get better. So
that's when he was in NA playing on TTV too. That's rough.
Yes.
What an era.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Scarzig, talk to me. How did the World Championships go for you in TCG? And I'm really excited. I have a few production specific questions for you that I'm really excited to talk to you about. But let's just start with Worlds as a whole for TCG. What was it like?
Worlds, just awesome vibes. I love how Worlds, it's not just about the games, it's also the community, right? It's a big festival for
sure.
all things Pokemon. But of course, for those who don't know, I wasn't casting, I wasn't in front of the camera. I was part of the backstage crew as well, helping out with the stream. And that was great because I just got to be, you know, I guess front seat almost, front row seats for all the action, all the games that we played on stream. We debuted a new special overlay that everybody's really excited about because it makes the game a little bit easier to watch, especially for more casual viewers. Anybody new who's jumping in will be able to follow the action a little bit more. And I was part of the team that is responsible for running that new overlay and all the computers and stuff and bells and whistles they have hooked up to it. So very excited for that. But in terms of competition, I know that we have a lot of content creators, probably a lot of podcasts already that have talked about it. Certainly, we had some unexpected decks do very well. And then a last-minute upset as a player in the top 8 had actually been handed a loss rather than a win due to unsportsmanlike conduct. So a matchup that we thought was going to happen suddenly didn't happen, and it was this crazy, almost WWE anime style. But wait, your opponent's actually this person, and it shook things up. A lot of controversy around that. No need to bog down this podcast by digging into the specifics, but suffice to say, regardless of everything that happened, the decks that did see a lot of success at the World Championships were a very heavy mixture of some unpredicted successes, like Miraidon and Shinosuke's Roaring Moon EX deck certainly were not on my radar, and Regidrago V-Star, which everybody knew was going to be strong heading into the tournament, but didn't get bullied out of the tournament, I think, as much as people were anticipating. And I thought the deck was quite strong heading into NAIC, and to see enough people really come into the deck, give it its due diligence, certainly was great. And of course, it got a couple new cards in the Shrouded Fable set. We got a special mini set that shook up the meta just a touch right before the World Championship. So that was also great to help out and showcase more variety there.
Yeah, Kieran was kind of nuts. And that's stupid. No, Monkey Dory was Twilight Masquerade. That's different, I guess. But
here, while I got you, cards on the table, I thought the Kyurem was a little bit too saucy. I didn't think it was going to be that important. And that in order to pull it off, you were going to need to overextend a bit too much, and I was proven wrong. The Kyurem popped off, certainly, so.
Regidrago's just became consistent, which is crazy. But anyway, that list, I think was really fun to play as like a TCG player as well. I don't know. I think that's like one of the most fun top tier meta decks they've printed in a while. I was like, this is a very fun play pattern, as opposed to the champion deck of Iron Thorns, which it sounds like pulling teeth to play or play against.
I was in the same boat with Regidrago. The more I played it, the more I was like, this deck is insane.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's so rewarding for playing the game just solidly.
Yes, agreed.
And it gives it such a great skill floor, skill ceiling, and then in the TCG, our top level players can squeeze blood out of a stone, and they win out from these absolutely ridiculous board states. They see lines of play that even there's the S plus tier high level players, and then just the A plus and S tier players that aren't seeing certain lines or certain calculations, and it always floors me every time. So shout out to those players who put in so much time and dedication, truly being rewarded for it. But Iron Thorns, I think I thought an Iron Thorns hybrid was maybe going to be Miraidon was going to be the way to go, but just going all in on Iron Thorns ended up being even more of a deadly choice for the tournament, certainly.
Yeah, that was crazy. Fun list. If you're playing it, I don't know. It didn't feel like it to me, but hey, it won the championship thing. Cool story from Worlds about the champion of TCG when he got brought up to do like all of his winners interview and media post tournament after winning. I was also in that same media room doing a little bit of like work I had to do to close out the event. It was really funny because when we go in there, the translator is like kind of having a hushed conversation with the champion's father. I think he was like pretty young, right? He's like a 19-year-old player that won the World Championships for TCG. And they're like talking with the translator kind of hurriedly, and the translator comes over to me. I think they assumed I worked in any capacity that could help, but also a couple of the like media team, and they're like, "Can we just make this like really fast? Our plane is in like 3 hours, and we need to buy an extra bag for this trophy. So we got to go." And I was like, that is super funny. But go. So it was a quick interview and they got moving, but I thought that was pretty great. But yeah, it was a good event. Joe, VGC, obviously you close out the show every tournament. Very, very fun to watch. I love watching VG every single year. You were casting, I think, juniors, right? But talk to me about how the VGC tournament went for Worlds.
Yeah, I think it's always an honor for VGC to go last, to like close the show before the closing ceremony, because obviously people want to tune in for the closing ceremony, so the most people are watching at that point. But it was a great weekend overall. There was kind of a lot of nostalgia attached to this World Championship. Like it's the third time being in Hawaii. So it's a different island, but obviously we have Pokemon competitive history attached to Hawaii at the World Championships. It's also the 10-year anniversary of Seijun Park winning the World Championships back in 2014, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, arguably the most iconic competitive Pokemon moment in, across all of the games that we've ever had. Like a lot.
Yeah.
You could probably attribute a lot of the growth of competitive Pokemon to that moment. Not all of it, obviously, but it was
a fair amount of it. Yeah,
it was the 10th anniversary, and on top of that, Seijun, who qualified from Korea, not only brought Pachirisu on his team yet again this year, which it wasn't even a troll. It was actually it wasn't great, but it was an understandable meta counter to one of the most popular restricted Pokemon, Miraidon. Pachirisu has the Volt Absorb ability, making it immune to electric attacks, and then its Terra option was Fairy. So Miraidon, who pretty much just has electric and dragon moves, if you Terra Fairy the Pachirisu and just click follow me, the Miraidon literally cannot do damage, and it will just it's like a checkmate. Like you can't win the game at that point. Now against other legendaries, like how Seijun was on stream against Aaron Zhang, who, without Miraidon, it's not as great. But he also wore the exact same outfit that he wore 10 years ago.
That's so good.
Right.
That's so genius, because you do like a before and after photo.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, he knew what he did.
Yeah, I'm going on stream. It's like post time skip, same outfit, and then like the hair is just a little bit different. He's got like a scar on one eye.
So love how dedicated he was to the history of the game and appreciation of it, but also like just in general, we're very fortunate at VGC where a lot of our world champions are still world's caliber players that still qualify for the world championships every year. So when we look through the schedule for each round, I think we had 5 different world champions on stream day one.
Wow.
They did not have a good record. They were actually 0-5 on stream until Wolf won on day 2. So world champions were not doing well on the big stage, but that's I'd say it's like it was big just celebration, like 10 years of from Seijun and a lot of history of VGC. Going into Championship Sunday, we had some really cool stuff. I was on the juniors finals match, and the junior that won, Kevin Hahn, he's light years ahead of the juniors division at this point. He's won 7 regionals, 3 ICs and worlds this year. So
this year,
yeah.
He won all those this year?
Yeah.
3 ICs.
Like it's hard.
It's all
that's
three,
all of them.
so, right?
That's all of them. Okay.
You might want to know that a different year. This year, he won EUIC, NAIC, and Worlds all consecutively. So I'm not sure about if he's won LASD before, but basically, like, he goes to locals. I've been to locals. I've lost to this kid at locals before. Like when he was like 10 years old. Now he's a couple years older, and he's beaten like world's qualified players in the Masters division. So so he's a real threat. And it was like he was moving up to the seniors division. Somebody get him in detention or something. He can't come so that was a big crux of our game, was that it was this junior who's wise, way beyond his years. But then the Masters finals was really cool. There was a European player, Luca Ceribelli, who was from Italy, and then a Japanese player who was running a hard Trick Room team. And it came down to Miraidon versus Calyrex Ice Rider, who are probably the two best restricted Pokemon throughout the whole weekend. EU came away with their third World Championship as Luca came out on top in the end. So now it's I think it's 5 Japan, 4 US, 3 EU. I want to say so. One more, and they tie us.
Dang, no Canadian World's Best. We're just calling them US. No NA title.
Well,
NA,
to
sneak in there.
It doesn't matter because it's Wolf and Ray. Wolf and Ray are both
right.
Yeah,
both US. Oh, dang it.
Yeah.
Oh, get them.
Unlucky.
All right. Well, Bridget, do you want to give the quick Unite recap for any viewers who are potentially just from other titles tuning into the podcast?
A Japan team won. They stomped the
whole
bracket.
They lost one map the entire tournament in both group stage and top 16 single elim.
They were playing out of their minds. They've all have qualified for Worlds before in different iterations, not exactly these exact 5 players, but have kind of been on the scene for, since the esport has happened. So it was really cool to see them soar and implement a lot of they were playing meta, but they were playing their own game, a lot different than how a lot of the other teams were looking at things. It's kind of hard to explain. They were putting EXP share on their attacker. No one else is doing that at all.
Yeah. At least not successfully.
No. Not
I've done that accidentally in solo queue, but that's about it.
Exactly. So yeah, it was like Zoinks said, it was Japan's first time winning Worlds for UNITE. It's always been an NA team, and we didn't do great.
Yeah, we had NA had 2 teams in top 16, but didn't move past the round of 16. So out of 4 reps from NA, 2 of them made it out of the group stage, but did not go past round of 16. Our top 8 was 6 Asian teams and 2 Western teams. So it was definitely a big flip-flop of what we have seen, because Worlds Year 1 was EU and NA playing in the grand finals, and then Worlds Year 2 was NA versus APAC with Japan at 3 and 4. And so it was kind of the slow climb of Japan for these last couple of years. But now they are definitely the dominant team. It's going to be... I'm super excited to see what kind of changes next year, because even if we look at last year, EU as a region got kind of memed on a little bit. None of their teams made it out of groups. But this year, I think one of the EU teams had a great run. They ended at top 8, but they did look really, really strong and went on a good run. So I don't know. It feels like EU as a whole kind of picked up a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. Unite is at an interesting spot. I feel like we had this, Caleb, you might remember this. We had this conversation last time we did this roundtable podcast. It's it feels like Unite, out of all the titles, is the most focused on region specific storylines. Whereas a lot of the other games, all of your games are single player titles. So a lot of them revolve around the players in particular. I would say there are some bigger conversations. Go in particular as that EU versus NA beef. That's very fun, and I do like it. But it's still we have the LATAM North is looking really good. Very specific regional callouts that we end up having storylines with around, which is interesting. Just interesting. But
yeah.
And you brought that up a little bit during the World's Preview show. Kind of the different metas and approaches to the game that the different regions kind of play towards, and Bridget touched on that as well, where the champions Fennel was viewing the game from kind of a different angle. Do you think that the overall meta game of Unite, how the game should be played, has shifted towards a style that favors those teams, or have they just really increase their skill vis-a-vis NA?
I think it's the latter, and maybe that's just me saying I hope it's the latter, because here's the thing. In Unite, the kind of vernacular these days, it is really popular to talk about NA's never gonna catch up. Japan's moved so far ahead. What are we gonna do? But I feel like that's not capturing the whole story behind it. I think that play style won this tournament. It did. But even amongst the Japanese teams, there are different play styles amongst all three that were representative. Like a team Zeta Division got, I believe, top 8 as well. That's where they concluded their tournament. But they got second at EUIC, a tournament they did really well at. And their style is a lot more of a blend between NA and Japan, which is really interesting. Okay. But like, I don't know, it just felt like that play style won. I don't want NA to lose its identity just because it's in a bit of a crisis, I guess is what I'm like saying. It might not be true. I might be just on hopium a little bit, but it feels like that's kind of the spot we're in. But at least to me, Bridget, I'm curious, are you aligned, or do you think that NA's gotta figure this Japan thing out?
Maybe more a little bit of both, because I do feel like since NA and like Western teams have been pretty dominant up until this Worlds, where APAC had every team they sent day 2 except for like one, basically.
Insane.
Very insane. They all did crazy.
One of them knocked out Luminosity Gaming, the 2-time world champions.
Yeah.
So they're feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Both of we talked about the last chance qualifier teams from APAC were monsters, and nobody thought they would show up like that at all.
I erased the whiteboard. There's no evidence anymore.
Yeah, that's true. No proof. No proof of that. No proof. So I do think we need to take, like, there's a lot to learn from how like APAC and Japan play the game compared to how NA does. And I know I feel like maybe prior to this point, NA was like, no, we do it right.
Sure.
But maybe we're a little more open, because it did feel like APAC teams would like play to their strengths more than play to the meta, which I feel like might have been a little bit of our downfall, probably among a billion other things. But I digress.
I've always stated that if we're gonna lump just East and West together, I think East is very much, we want to prove that we know what's best. Like, we've solved it. Our weird take of the meta, that's what's best. And the West is very much, we want to be the best at what everyone thinks is best. So we want to identify the meta and become the best at the meta game. We want to optimize the crap out of it. If you're not knocking out this wild Pokemon at 842, you're doing it wrong. Like, we want to make sure our experience is min-maxed to the nth degree and try to play around that, where the Eastern meta is a lot more fluid. They're willing to take big risks in draft because that's where their players are comfortable, and just kind of make stuff work, which evidently, again, it won this tournament, which is really interesting. But yeah. Okay. I love talking about Unite. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I want to add on that. I think it's really interesting how you two are, categorizing your regions compared to how we would from the other sports, the other games. I'm not sure how Caleb and Scarzig see it, but I would imagine our regions are individual, where you're like East versus West. NA and EU are not East, or are not West, excuse me. Like, it's NA, comma, EU, comma, LATAM, comma, Oceania, right? Where you got, like, it seems interesting how Unite is branching East and West together, or West as one group and East as one group.
I think on the World's preview show, I did it into 4. I think I did Japan, APAC, NA, EU, and LATAM. Those are like the 4 quadrants I kind of have. But you are right. We do lump some regions together. NA and EU in particular gets lumped together a lot because those players play together all the time. But I'm sorry, I cut you off, Joe. Please continue.
No, I just think it's interesting how you guys view your regions. I think you have more of an esport, I guess a traditional esport view on it, right? Something like StarCraft or League of Legends or like, even fighting games, they would consider Western as in like Europe and NA together. But in BGC, maybe TCG or Go, like a player playing in NA and a player playing in EU, like they're not the same team. You're not considered in the same category.
Oh, interesting. That is really cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Scarzig, talk to me about TCG on that.
For TCG, we have some player rivalries, certainly. We drum up some inter-region banter as much as we can just for fun and storyline purposes. But generally, my take on the whole global region breakdown is that EU, we always give them some extra credit for playing control decks, things that are a bit slower, more methodical, a little bit more reasoned out, just because your top players will decide what is good and other players will adopt their decks and it all trickles down from there. And we tend to give a lot of credit, to Tord Reklev, the Cameraman brothers, Kremascoli, Caterpie, for those of you who know, the Control Lord over there, along with I'm forgetting his name, but you'll have to forgive me. So Control for EU, NA tends to find the really good deck for a specific tournament, not like an overall theme. Like for this tournament, we're predicting the meta. We've got a lot of really good testing groups of top players that are all working together to shop up what is the best deck for this specific meta. And the pattern I've begun to notice is that LATAM, and I got to give a shout out to Oceania, the Australian players tend to be very good at very quickly identifying what is the best deck overall for a metagame and just full sending it. And, it's 50-50 whether or not it is optimized enough to immediately see success, right? Like Charizard EX kind of got its claim to fame as the recipe that it became, the Tord Reklev reactive, disruptive Charizard. It got its start as just I'm going to get up really fast and hit you Charizard, and that had its origins in LATAM. I remember way back into Origin Form Palkia V-Star, when that was one of the forefront decks in the meta, got its origins, I would definitely say, out of Australia, where people knew the deck was strong, but because it didn't have any data around how it would do it in a tournament or how it should be built, other regions were afraid to bring it, and Australia jumped right on it. And the same with Gardevoir. I feel like even when other regions weren't really that, sold on Gardevoir, only individual specialist players from other regions would bring it. It seemed that Australia was much more willing to bet big on Gardevoir. So that's kind of my general take on the regions for TCG.
Shout out OC. Okay, I like that. I like that a lot. They don't get enough shout outs in Unite. Or maybe they get enough. Well, either way. Caleb, how about regional metas and Go?
Yeah, I think it used to be a lot more regional, kind of like what Joe was saying about, it would be like NA and the EU and, LATAM and, APAC kind of be separate. Oceania also having some of their own metas. But I want to say probably in this past year, the game is kind of been more globalized, more so in the sense that, like, I mean, if we play it on in-game rank ladder, it doesn't matter what region you're in. Like, it's just depends on time zone. Like, if I'm up late, I'm queuing to like players from Asia, and Oceania and stuff, and there's really no difference in that.
And what they're running and stuff like that. Like, it's
no, in the sense that you could face anyone really at any point in time in the rank ladder. So and people will kind of like copy ideas from each other here or there. But for the actual like tournament format where it's just show 6 and bring 3, there's been just kind of like a lot of more like online practice tournaments and grassroots resources where they highlight like which team performed well, even if it's for like a region that didn't have like a broadcasted tournament, right? They'll say like, oh, these were the top finishing teams from Korea's qualifier or something like that, right? And so people are just kind of picking apart like what works and what doesn't work. So even like the world champion team, like he won with a team that was something that you would see in any like North American tournament too, even though he's from Hong Kong, right? So I think that's kind of been one of the big parts of it. And also just like TCG and VGC, because it's kind of an individual type of game, the trends aren't as obvious, I would say, right? For like for Go, right? Whereas like, for Unite, you have to work as 5 collectively. A full team of 5 composition and strategy has a lot more chance of being unique than just like one person running 6 different Pokemon, where there's a lot of times you face someone, they have like 4 out of the same 6 or 5 out of the same 6 Pokemon that you have, right? So there's only as much strategic difference. Like like a Lickitung, for example, was like one of our best Pokemon in the past meta. It's going to be good no matter what region you're from, right? And it's going to be good in a lot of matchups. So
shout out Lickitung.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense too for TCG, where we have the same decks trickle down and you swap out 2 to 3 cards for the meta of the tournament that you're anticipating. We get early data or just data we take with a grain of salt from grassroots online tournaments, and especially from Japan because they get the new cards early. But because their tournaments formats and qualifications are so different, they tend to gravitate away from certain archetypes. So we have to take that into account, and that also plays into making that bold call of, yeah, this deck didn't show up too well in early online tournaments, but I see the vision, and I think in our format it could be quite good. And I just remembered the other player from EU I wanted to shout out was Sander Wojcik, the other control demon.
Yes,
from
I've heard
EU.
the Wojcik name.
Yeah.
It is strong. Okay. Cool. Yeah. All right. Chat getting hyped for your corgis in the back, Scarzig. Of course.
Yes.
They're so well represented on today's podcast. That's wonderful. Awesome. Okay, so we're running a little bit late on time, so I'm gonna jump around questions a little bit here.
Yeah.
We were gonna talk about what to expect headed into the next year for each of our titles. Unite, we technically don't know exactly yet, other than we're going to be at LAIC, so we're pumped for that, but we're going to hold all of you hostage then. We're not going to ask that question since we don't know yet. We'll talk about that very soon. As soon as the rulebook drops, we'll have an Overdunk episode about that. But one question, Caleb, you posed this one. I think we actually talked about it a little bit last time we did this like town hall roundtable style thing. But the question I have is, or should Pokemon be esports? Is it there already? If it's not, should it be? Are the parts that make it unique from other esports titles good? All of this is kind of encaptured. And to start us off, I thought this was kind of interesting. The Esports Insider, really cool website, did a article recently called Pokemon the Unspoken Esport. Spooky title, but I think it kind of fits. Throughout it, they basically talk about the system, about how Pokemon is unique in the esports world. So they, for example, we have one world championship that kind of has every title at it. This is only really represented in one other esport that I can think of, and that would be like all the Supercell titles. So like Clash Royale, Clash of Clans, Brawl Stars, their event is at one venue. And it's played out over a week or so, which is really funny that it's like the first on Keep Reading. But anyway, basically just goes on to talk a little bit more about the Pokemon World Championships and all of that, mostly positive, talking about the representatives from around the world, how many show up, and everything like that. But of course, whenever you talk esports, orgs come up a lot. If you are a fan of any other esport, you definitely know what these are already, but talking about organizations joining and becoming a part of a ecosystem in competition. I've talked about this with a bit of a trepidatious way because I have followed esports for a very, very long time. I've, like when Caleb was talking about growing up with Dota, I have also done so, right? I've watched all the old StarCraft VODs. I pay-per-viewed StarCraft VODs. That's how old I am.
Oh, you're a true gamer.
Which, yeah, I am a real gamer. May thank me later. It's a weird question and weird world to be. And Unite, I would say, you can correct me if you think this is wrong, but I think out of all four titles, it is definitely the most esportsy out of them. I mean, it's a team competition, which already gives us that on we had 26 teams attend the World Championships. The vast majority of them were represented by orgs. Very small orgs for the most part, except for Japan. Japan, for Worlds, not for the whole year, which is an interesting other talking point that we might have to bring up in this title. But we had kind of around stuff. So APAC, we had some large orgs and some smaller ones like Onyx Rise, Talon, both represented for us, as well as, of course, in Japan, Fennel and Zeta Division and JSV Reject, all very big names. And then in North America, the biggest name we probably have is Luminosity. We added some other really small orgs Fluffy Aimers were represented and stuff like that, like very small startup organizations that are basically, we'll pay you a few dollars to get to Worlds and get our name out there. It's an interesting spot to be, but I'm curious what the other games think. Caleb, let's start with you. Pokemon Go, I'd say, is probably the closest in this realm, and the same thing to be talking about esports orgs. Y'all had jerseys on stage a couple of years ago, so talk to me. Do you want Pokemon Go to be more like other esports?
I definitely would. Okay. I think the harder part is how do we get there, and I think Joe and Adam might have more insights on this, as other games that have like kind of individual competition but have been around for much longer, right? So maybe you all have more insights on this, but there's like we have some definitely smaller esports orgs sponsoring some players here there.
Okay.
And the biggest one's probably 7-Eleven Mexico, which they're like incredible.
Yeah.
Like they have big org. They fund a lot of esports. I don't know what they're doing in Mexico, but I want that 7-Eleven to be doing that here in the US as well, because that'd be dope. But they spend a lot of resources. But I think outside of them, there's not really any other notable esports orgs that are really involved in the Go scene. And I can see why, because it's tough because it's an individual competition. Your chances of winning worlds or even top 5 at worlds is very, very slim when there's like 199 other competitors there, and any bad matchup here or there can just knock you out right off the bat, right? And just like it's a lot of investment for org for potentially very little payout, right? Whereas team games like Unite, like League, like Dota, all this stuff, all these first-person shooter games where there's a team aspect to it, there's a lot more incentive for these orgs to get their names out there because there's a much higher chance they go to worlds and they perform well at worlds. Also, team games inherently you're gonna have less teams than compared to individual players at Go and stuff like that as example. So your odds of doing well are much higher, right? That in itself. So sorry, we're gonna say. Yeah.
I was just gonna say you're definitely hitting the nail right on the head. It being an individual competition, 1v1, less opportunities for visibility, and this is also mentioned in that esports insider article that you were mentioning, that Pokemon doesn't need to partner with any outside brands or sponsorships the way you'll see in other esports broadcasts.
Yeah.
So organizations would rather kind of approach getting into a community or into a scene from multiple angles in that way, where they're sponsoring strong players, but also they want their logo on some of the parts of the broadcast or to be shouted out by some of the casters or the hosts. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to the 7-Eleven recap. You know how they do on those sports desks.
I would kill to be like, that's a 7-Eleven Pentakeo on a cast. I would commit murder to call that.
Yeah. But I know our players from TCG have done a really good job of just making their own orgs, right? Like Tord Reklev has a sponsorship with PSA, the card grading company. That's very organic. A lot of players are pseudo-sponsored by Metafy for coaching.
Sure. Yeah.
And one of our, premier content / competitive squads, they're almost like an elevated. The vibe I get from the Shuffle Squad is they're almost like a gaming house. I feel like they don't all live together, but the content, that's kind of how it strikes me. But they've got a really good business acumen and vision. Recently partnered with GameStop, and GameStop actually does have direct partnerships with Pokemon for certain promos and certain products. So maybe there is something there where GameStop might be the first primo sponsor. I just know that working with TPCI, the Pokemon Company International, it's difficult, right, to get all of the contracts approved through the parent company in Japan, TPC. So I can understand there's a massive barrier to entry there where Pokemon doesn't need sponsorships. They don't need the money. And are other brands willing to bend the knee and play by their rules?
That's a very good question. Joe, how about you? VGC and esports, what's it looking like over there?
Yeah,
whatever Wolf is doing, right?
Yeah.
I think to the original question of is Pokemon esports / should Pokemon be esports, I think it's inherently yes. Like the original line of the Pokemon theme song, I want to be the very best like no one ever was, right? From the beginning, Pokemon
the first line is and then it starts.
That's so true. That might be more esports than the sentence. I'm not gonna lie.
From the beginning, Pokemon has been competitive. Like you don't advance the game through catching and getting a higher friendship with your Pokemon. You get it through beating one-on-one battles with Brock and Misty and Lieutenant Surge, and the credits roll after you beat the championship, not after you collect every Pokemon in the Pokedex, right? So I think the game is inherently competitive, and we should try our best, and we have done a great job. I think just the Pokemon scene and TBCI and everybody over the last however long the 15 years that competitive Pokemon's been around, that like getting more people to understand the inherent value of competitive Pokemon is the goal. And I don't think it's like Cloud9 coming in and sponsoring some player, because that player could go 0-3 drop one day. Like, so you sponsor them for Baltimore regionals and then they never get on stream. Nobody gets to see the Cloud9 jersey, right? But if you do it the way Beast Coast has done it, or, you mentioned Wolf, is having highly competitive players that are also content creators, I think is the way to go about it. And I think this is something that, like Beast Coast, you have James Beck, you have Wolf Glick, you have so many other people. I mean, TCG has 1 million, right? As Scarzig was talking about, 1 million top level players that are sponsored. Like there was NASC, you had Rahul Reddy and John Ang, and that crew sponsored by Disguise Gaming for that event,
yeah, that's right.
And so they're content creators, but they're also high level players. So I think that's how esports org should handle it. You're covering your bases, is either the player does well and you see the jersey on stream and you get the promotion there, or if RNG goes against them, which happens in Pokemon, at least as content creators, they're still wearing the jerseys, having the branding on their social medias and stuff. And I think the other way, like having more streamers that get sponsored, like I think the 100 Thieves approach, like when they were getting super big into League of Legends, and they started hiring a bunch of YouTube streamers and Twitch streamers, and doing LCS watch parties with their content creators from 100 Thieves, so that their audiences would start watching League of Legends and stuff. So I would love if we had more high level players sponsored by orgs, and they would do like watch parties, like go to one or two less regionals a year, right? And still stream the regional and still, be sponsored by the org and be a part of it and help grow the game. But I think there's a lot of potential growth for Pokemon with esports.
Okay. Yeah, especially since the massive growth that we've had within the last few years specifically. Yeah. If anybody was kind of just writing off Pokemon like, yeah, it's whatever, it's small time, we get to celebrate the game, everybody loves Pokemon, but now it's serious with production value, with the prize money certainly, and just the prestige. I know, speaking from the TCG side, when it comes to all of those factors all at once for a competitive card game, Pokemon is just blowing everyone else out of the water. We're getting so many people coming over from Yu-Gi-Oh! Or other card games just trying to get a piece of that pie, and we'll have to see if other games take a hint and start to increase their own production, right? Yu-Gi-Oh!, One Piece are other big games that have massive IPs but aren't putting the love and care into like their broadcasts and their regional tournaments the way that their player bases wishes they would.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
I think there's definitely pros and cons, right? Especially with individual competition for like VG and TCG and Go. And I think obviously one of the pros is it's kind of like the anime, right? Like if you want to be the best, you can be, right? And you could be anybody and just enter in competition and win worlds, right? Whereas I think for kind of a lot of other more, I don't know if traditional is the best word, but the kind of more typical esports you see, right? With the big, tier 1 org sponsor them. Like I would put Unite in that category, but like other MOBAs and shooters and stuff like that. Like it's the feasibility of qualifying for worlds and winning it is like way less, right? It's really hard. You need other people that are also good at the game. You need time to build that communication and skill base, and even having a chance to be on a roster like that to go to worlds to potentially even win is like very bleak. Like it's not likely for most people, right? Which is why esports orgs are more willing to sponsor, but also from a viewer perspective, I would say probably for Unite, there's a lot more viewers that are rooting for a specific team, right? They want their not even just a region, they're fans of a team, right? Like I know like when TTV was big in Unite, like, there are a bunch of TTV fans, right? And they're all there, and they know when they're rooting for TTV, they're not trying to win worlds themselves, but for them, like TTV winning is like almost them winning, right? Whereas for like, I know for Go, I can't speak for TG and VG, but my guess is you don't have people viewing their like viewers just like rooting for them, be like, oh, if Caleb wins Worlds, like that's a win for us, right? Like that's
Wolf
like
is
it's
probably
like your friends...
the only exception here, right?
Yeah,
like, when is Wolf playing? Like,
Wolf, and,
Wolf
I know,
on stream.
Yeah, like Tord has a lot of fans and stuff, but
but
like
Tord,
but those are kind of like the exceptions to the rule, whereas for the big team games, that's the standard, right? You have people showing up, and and of course, again, there's like pros and cons on both sides, right? I think the Pokemon Dream of being Pokemon Masters definitely possible in Go, VG, and TCG. For Unite, it's okay if you're not, right? It's okay as long as you're rooting for your region or you're for your team and stuff like that, because and that's fine too. So I think that's probably where one of the biggest differences between individual and team Go, and kind of coincides with why tier 1 orgs are more willing to sponsor team games, right?
Okay.
In that respect.
That makes sense. Bridget, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this. We've discussed it a few times. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the show. Do you think, because I would say it's very fair to say Unite is going full steam ahead in the esports direction. We talked about it a lot last episode, but the changes for our competitive format this coming year are going to be very team focused now. Now, where we used to have championship points awarded per player, now they're going to be awarded per team. So now an org's incentive to join a team is much higher, so they don't just team doesn't blow up after every single tournament. You have a whole new 5 players to sign a contract with. So Bridget, I'm curious what you think of these changes, the general direction that Unite's going in, but all of Pokemon kind of being more interested in the esports side of things.
Yeah, it's been interesting to hear all of your guys' perspectives on like the individual versus the team aspect of esports, just because it's not something I've really thought about a lot, because Unite is a team sport, much like all the other esports. Not that I... Zoinks is the overall esport knowledge guy, one could say. So I'm pretty excited. I do feel like Pokemon has like leaned into... I feel like when we say esport, it's like sponsorships, like orgs.
Yeah, it feels like we're talking about a lot.
Yeah, but overall, it just feels like Pokemon is like leaning in, because Unite is so different than everything else. Like even having a LAN is like so much more complicated for us, because we have people who play on their phones, people play on their Switches, people playing with their Joy-Cons. One guy wants to play handheld. I don't know. Like it's just
I want to play handheld at Worlds.
We have multiple players. It's a nightmare, Caleb. It's so bad.
That's impressive. They're even able to do
that. They're probably better on handheld than I am.
It's like the worst of both options. You're playing on the worst hardware with the worst without using the controller, which is the only benefit of playing on the Switch is the controller.
Like when people do like the loose Joy-Cons and like their arms are like over here and they're like playing. Yeah, it's
crazy.
Just even from a logistic perspective, it's kind of a huge lift. So the fact that we've basically been adding a LAN every year, I guess, with or like at least adding like in-person things. Like we added Final Stretch this past year, which was like another lift. Even EUIC, like they totally rehauled it last year, and they're like keeping it and trying to make it more global. So it just feels like I'm really excited about the direction it's going. It feels like Pokemon is investing in Unite from like they're willing to change things every year. They're listening to feedback. Like they are actually been pretty flexible, especially whoever's running like UCS, like our competitive circuit. Like it is actually impressive to me how much they're willing to like do and change and adapt. So I think it's all pretty exciting. And I like I'm overall positive on the changes. Obviously, LAIC is lit. That's so sick. I love that we're giving something for LATAM, because they love this game, and I think that's going to be so hype. So
yeah,
I'm pretty excited.
Every game.
Yes, I can't
Come
wait.
to Brazil, baby. Let's go.
The hypest crowd for sure.
Yeah, whenever Fusion, like the LATAM team that got top 4 was like on the stream, the chat just like it was like Spanish. It just blew up. It was so fun. It was awesome.
Yeah, they love that team. Speaking of people who just show up to cheer on a specific org, right? Like they this is the part of the show where I am like the cautious, trepidatious one into the esports side of things. Joe, you said it before, I completely agree. Pokemon has always been esports. Like ever since they've done competitions, you were correct. The thing is, With some of the changes, specifically to Unite, I don't know about some of the other changes, but they are going more esports, less Pokemon. And what I mean by that is obviously all the other games you've added instead of, well, re-added, I suppose, for the old heads out there. But like a championship points, not a threshold anymore that you have to pass, but a however many players near the top of the ranking. And Unite moving in a similar fashion. So because of that, it definitely changes some of just like the feelings and vibes towards Worlds. Not necessarily in a bad way, but different than what it used to be. The thing that I look at when I look at play Pokemon as a whole, if I include Unite, TCG, VGC, and Go, the thing I think of first and foremost is Smash Majors. Super Smash Bros. Is one of my favorite esports of all time. I love it. Melee, Ultimate, I love following it. I really think they've got some of the best stuff going. If a Smash player, and I've talked to them a lot, when they look at competitive Pokemon, it's like a dream come true. It is the aspect of, it is giant open tournaments all the time, everywhere, and there's the game developer backing it. Like, it is literally the dream come true for that world. But, like, Smash Brothers has existed for however many years with zero backing from the developer, Nintendo doing nothing for them. But they're still got an organization and a scene that's amazing. They look at Pokemon and be like, that is... we got it, like we have the giant open tournaments all the time throughout the world in different spots, try to get as many local opportunities for players to be involved. And then we also have that like high level competition level. You stick around until the internationals on championship Sunday, you get to see like the best of the best play. You know what I mean? Like, we don't really have many invitationals as a part of our competitive circuits and things like that, like almost every other esports does, other than Smash Bros, right? But some of these directions we're going in could lead that way. And I don't know, I really like competitive Pokemon. And I like I love the open tournament feel. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I know that with these changes, with Pokemon maybe moving more towards making world championship qualifications harder, they are just furthering that prestige, right? The prestige of making that a qualification, but you're also favoring your long-term players. You don't get as much of the anybody can show up and do well and jump in. At least for Pokemon TCG, certainly, our longtime players continue to perform. They have that seasoning and that je ne sais quoi that allows them to consistently read the meta, to consistently outplay, and just the sort of legacy knowledge that can't be taught.
And that's a good thing, I think. Well, I do think that's a great thing for the game.
And with, as Joe was talking about, as Caleb was talking about, with organizations needing these individual players to have strong brands, be content creators, maybe we'll have this breakout star of a legacy skilled player getting into a very strong content position like Wolf, but for every game. Tord infamously, isn't like a huge streamer or anything. He has like some coaching, he does his own thing, but he generally, from what I understand, keeps to himself and comes out of the woodwork to win tournaments and then goes back into hibernation.
So cool. So badass. I love that.
And when it comes to the way that you evaluate the prestige of these positions going forward, it means that the esports are coming, right? You're making it more difficult. And as the tournaments become less, not everybody's going to show up to win, and you get more respect on the competitors, the viewers are also going to begin to attach more and more of their hopes and identities onto their favorite players. I think the way that in Super Smash Brothers we've got people who go super hard for Mango, or for me personally, I'm like Amsa. Whenever I see the YouTube algorithm serving me up one of his games from a major, I'm like, oh, I got to see how this set went.
Of course, yeah.
And
Mango, technically friend of the show, very old school Unite mics. We have Dupes next commentates Mango playing a Unite game. It's like our best performing video on the channel. It's really good. Go back and watch it. It's a lot of fun.
So I definitely get it. Yeah, having the high skill ceiling and the reward and prestige is, I think, that extra ingredient that doesn't really get talked about when it comes to making a good esport. And I know specifically from the production standpoint, Pokemon have been really striving to try and identify players that have good brands and good potential storylines and drum them up throughout the season. So viewers at home, you're going to be seeing a lot of this certainly as we head into the new regional championship circuit. The production's going to be hopefully spinning up more highlight reels, and they're always doing all kinds of footage, like especially in Honolulu. Almost every high level player, we had some interview footage or just some B-roll cut together to build up that hype. And I know that they really care about that sort of hero building for our viewers at home.
That's cool. Yeah, sometimes I envy you all on Swiss so you can fit more content into your broadcast, and other times I'm like, thank goodness. We just have a bracket and we can just streamline games very, very quickly. But it's a give and take. But okay, we have gone pretty long on this episode, so I want to end things off with just a bit of a rapid fire round. Let's do some more fun questions. Let's let our hair down. We had the whole esports conversation. Now we can all relax and talk a little bit. Whose game's the best? Whose game is the best? Bridjet.
Scarzig, dude.
That is so funny.
Chill.
Oh, that's one for the video watchers. So make sure to go to youtube.com/UniteMics to go watch that bit. All right, Bridjet, what makes Unite the best game out of all 4 titles? Rapid fire round, by the way. Everybody.
Oh, we're the most different, and our crowd's the best. It's fun.
All right, GG. Xeminan, I guess you could try. What makes VG the best?
Yeah, I think VGC, the amount of decisions that go into every single turn, the amount of decisions in team building, and how 2 players can play the same 6 Pokemon completely differently. I think there is a rush to the intelligent back and forth in VGC that is unlike any other video game I've ever experienced.
Okay, bold move to use mirror matches to prove your point. But Scarzig, how about you? What makes TCG the best?
TCG, we're the OG, the original, the collectability, the original fad. We set the stage, and now, like, you've got your cards. You can just collect them if you want, even if they rotate out. You still got those good memories. Most accessible game, I think. We're actually just about to print one of our tier 1 decks for like $30, so you can jump right into the game and start playing a good deck and have fun.
Okay. Unite's a free download. Caleb Peng, what about Pokemon Go?
Pokemon Go is also free download, but there's a lot of ways to spend money on the game.
Sure isn't accessible.
Yeah, I'm not. I would.
We had that conversation a few months ago.
I would say it's probably the easiest of the games in terms of understanding what's going on and picking it up and just kind of finding, figuring out how to play it. I think on the higher tier level, it gets a lot more complex on the granular level. But I think as a viewer, it's pretty easy to watch and it's quick. So I think, after we finished a whole series on stream, I looked over and Aaron Zhang and Sage Park had just wrapped out their first game. So I was like, wow, they're still going on. So our games do go quick. Yeah,
that's cool. All right, I think that's a good vouch. I've always thought, I don't know why Go, it's so fast. Why not just play with all 6 of your Pokemon? Conversation for a different time.
Trust me, I got some thoughts on that too. Yeah, I'll hop on another episode if you want to talk about it.
Okay, Xeminan, if you could go pro in any of the 4 Pokemon titles, which one would it be?
Ooh, that's
And I define pro by, like, in our game, I mean doing very well. I would say, like, winning an IC or top 8ing at Worlds in any of the games. What would you do?
Oh, that's so tough. I mean, like, I'd probably my heart would say Unite, but my wallet would say the trading card game, so I'd make more money. So I'm gonna stick with the top 8ing Worlds in TCG.
All right, sounds good. Okay, Scarzig.
I mean, if you can top 8, the funny thing too is you have a guaranteed token that says I top 8 worlds. You can bring the spiciest meme and be like, I'm gonna top 8 TCG with this crazy pile of a deck.
Not exactly the question, but I see where we're going.
No, going pro, I think
Semantics.
VG.
Okay.
I've been very curious about jumping in, and I think the team building and the flexibility, getting that big Sage Park moment of bringing, the Cubone and popping off is really important to me as a player.
Okay, let's go. We have some Endeavor shenanigans, I think. All right, Caleb Peng, how about you?
Definitely be Unite. It's the team aspect that I think makes it super fun, right? Like, it's more than just winning for yourself, but accomplishing something as a group is a whole different feeling. And I already tried and failed, so.
All right, well, in this scenario, try again.
Yeah.
Bridjet, how about you?
Okay, do any of the other, I would assume not. No one else gets like a media day at Worlds, right? Just the Unite teams.
Yeah, before Championship Sunday, they get some media stuff. Like they get the competitors to come in and do interviews and stuff, but yeah.
That was my incentive to pick Unite.
Because you get a media day?
So fun, yes.
It is so fun. We asked them very dumb questions. Well, our socials asked them very dumb questions. We have a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, I want funny picks.
Okay,
professionally taken by Pokemon.
Yes, good. You get that in any title, but yeah, the funny questions, that might be to Unite. Yeah, mine's Unite, no question. Cool. All right. What is the best way to get involved in competing in your game? Entry level. Like if we have a Unite viewer watching, but they really want to try competing in VG, TCG, or Go, and then the same question, just mix it around for any one of your games. What's the easiest thing, the first thing they should try to start doing? We'll start with Scarzig.
Yeah, you just go to the Pokemon websites like pokemon.com/play, and they have an event locator, so you can see which local game store near you is holding Pokemon TCG tournaments.
Cool.
We have a new set about to come out, Stellar Crown, so you can go to a pre-release tournament, just play some matches for fun, and get some cards right away, some of the cards from the newest set.
Sweet.
And then go from there, start playing in League Cups. You get special exclusive promos from doing well at those, and getting points towards your World Championship, hopefully. But yeah, local game store is where you want to start.
Cool. All right, I'm going to keep pitching the question, but chat, if you have any questions for any of the commentators about any of the games, feel free to drop them in right now. If we get some, we might ask them. Joe, Xeminan, what about you for VGC?
Yeah, I think the simplest answer is the thing that we've been doing for 28 years, playing the video game on the latest hardware, right? Scarlet and Violet on the Nintendo Switch. But if you play the actual video game that it's all based around, like, you're already halfway there. You already know typing, you already know weaknesses and resistance. You know what Pokemon do. So just do that extra effort of research, learning what Intimidate and other important abilities are, learning about effort values and how to invest your Pokemon properly, and taking them in game on the ladder in Battle Stadium. You can take that Meowscarada that you picked at the beginning at your house or whatever, and build a team around it.
And now they have rental teams, right? So you can actually just play teams that other people built and say are good, and then just try to test your metal that way.
You learn why that team is good, why, pros and cons and everything like that. So it's a lot more accessible now than it used to be back in the day.
Yeah, that's sweet. Caleb Peng, how about for Pokemon Go?
Yeah, I mean, you could just download the app and play the in-game ladder as a way to start. You could do 25 battles per day, or sometimes more depending on a special event, which should keep you pretty busy on most days. And then just like what Scarzig said as well, the event locator to find local tournaments is really important. Great way to practice the actual championship series format, because in-game ladder, you only just bring 3 Pokemon blind, whereas in-game ladder, or whereas the local tournaments are mirroring the championship series. So really great way to kind of dip your toes in and do that before choosing to, buy a flight and a hotel to an actual regional tournament, right? Because that could be daunting if that's your first ever
pretty epic first step, but yeah. Yes, that'd be crazy. Bridjet, how about for Unite? Any advice on how to get started in competing in Unite?
Man, I mean, it feels so simple, but it's just like, it's a free game. You download the game. I would say watching like the esport, I guess, is pretty helpful. You guys do a really good job like explaining what's happening if you're like truly interested in competitive itself, and not just kind of like in being a little silly goofy guy on the ladder. So yeah, I don't know. I think that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, we do have one question for chat. I'm going to ask this one, then I have one more fun question, and then we'll get out of here. I promise I won't hold you much longer. And Glad saying you can watch spotlights. That is true. Shout out to Glad Borealis on YouTube. They make really cool Pokemon spotlights, very similar to how the League of Legends does them for Pokemon Unite. Fully in-depth videos, and I voiced one for Snorlax that just got posted. So if you want to hear it, go check it out. I don't have a link right now, but I'll put one in the description of the episode when we post it. But, okay, this question was really interesting. Might be an odd question, Not another question. How do you feel like your game is set up in terms of content creation, especially at the top level? Are top players doing enough to help bring aspiring players into competitive or not? I'm curious, do you think content creators are bringing people into competitive right now or no? I think in Unite, it's kind of a mixed bag, but I would say for the most part, not really. I don't think many content creators are very competitive focused at the time being. I think a lot of them are more casual focused, and then we have some that kind of dabble in both. Chris Heroes is probably the best for both. Obviously, Spraggles like works full time in doing commentary and casting, so that will bring in that audience. But he also, most of his content revolves around the casual play experience and the solo queue experience. But I'm hoping to make more content too, so hopefully I'll help with that too. But anyway, Caleb Peng, how about you? Do you think Go content creators are more focused on casual or more focused on competitive?
It's kind of a little bit like what you said about Unite. I think obviously players that do well, especially at Worlds or at our big tournaments, some of them will get into streaming because of that. Like our previous world champion, he got into streaming and started making YouTube videos and content as well to get more players into it, which is great. But there are also definitely a lot of content creators that just put out content for content's sake and, run kind of fun, unique Pokemon that might not be that good, but they make them work, or they make interesting videos on it. They make them entertaining for entertainment purposes. So it's kind of a mix of both, right? Because kind of like Unite, there's that in-game ladder that's more casual based, right? Obviously it's competitive, but it's not the same thing as official format. So and more players are going to gravitate towards that over the official championship series format. But there's a little bit of crossover with some content creators, so kind of a similar response as you had for Unite.
Okay, cool. How about you, Scarzig, for TCG?
TCG are top level competitors. When they make content, generally it's with the mind of somebody who's already invested in the game, trying to get into learning the best deck, understanding why it's the best deck, just bringing their game to the next level, just watching gameplay, having meta breakdowns, or just, again, taking advantage of their individual coaching. But when it comes to onboarding and facilitating new players, I definitely want to give a special shout out here to Pumpkin Amy.
Yeah,
she's great.
Yeah,
she's really good at making practical videos that other content creators wouldn't really think to make. How to find the local tournament, how to sign up for that tournament, good ways to prep for your first tournament, how to sign up for a regional, things like that have been very fundamental. And I know a lot of players have posted about how helpful those videos have been. And I think Pokemon overall makes a lot of great beginner and onboarding content, comes directly from the source. We just had a trainer tour, which is like a special bus tour, reality show they did, where they had some brand new trainers just kind of building their decks around their favorite Pokemon. Nothing super high level competitive, but jumping in and playing. Even the Pokemon Play Lab, which I mentioned earlier, is specifically for that purpose when it comes to Pokemon TCG. So I think the onboarding mostly for our game has come directly from the source.
Okay, fair enough. And then, Joe, final question to you for VGC. Do you think that most content creators are focused on casual, or do you think they are focused more on the competitive side of things?
I think they're trying their best. I think that's the first way to start. I think the competitive streamers and content creators are trying. They're just so overwhelmed and dwarfed in size compared to shiny hunting and Nuzlocke and all these hardcore challenges and all these things that they just take up so much of the Pokemon ecosystem online that you have people playing under the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet category on Twitch, but they're playing a crystal randomizer or whatever, right? But they're under the Scarlet and Violet, which is what we're playing on, but they're under the same category, or shiny hunting X and Y and stuff like that. So content creators, they're trying their best, but I would say it's probably more casual than competitive, and it's so tough because a lot of times, I know when I was getting into Go, when I was playing at the regional, I was just looking at every Pokemon I had in Go that was somewhat competitively viable, and looking up competitive GBL ranked videos of this Pokemon, and there was a bunch of content of every single Pokemon out there. Even if they're not great, people were still making videos of each Pokemon and how you can use it in GBL and what Pokemon to pair it with and stuff. But it's tough. Nobody in VGC is looking up an Incineroar guide. right? Like they're gonna look
Yeah.
up random Pokemon that you never like. They're gonna look up like a I don't know Hisuian Samurai video, but like the amount of people that
Sounds
want
fire.
to know that. Right. The amount of people that want that obscure video compared to the amount of people that want to play VGC at the high level, it's just the views are not there for you to put effort into finding, those little needles in the haystack. So we're trying our best, but shiny hunting and Nuzlocke, that is a behemoth to try to get over.
That is true.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, final question. And I'm sorry, this is a bit of a steal from you, Joe. So this was one of my, by the way, shout out to the Oko podcast. I'll get you to plug everything when we end off the show, but I adore the Oko podcast with you and Sierra. It is an incredible show, all covering all VGC. You had one of the coolest questions ever, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was a viewer submitted it. It was, a la the NBA or NHL or MLB all have a logo, right? With a silhouette of a player in the middle of it. Usually this player is a famous player, like NBA, it's like Jerry West or whatever. It's just a silhouette of a player in there. If every Pokemon title had one, what Pokemon would be like the iconic logo for it? So, example, the Overwatch League, they used the character Tracer to show off the Overwatch League. Yeah. Overwatch Contenders, they're like tier 2, use the character Genji, and they like used it in like as like a samurai, like a cyborg ninja kind of look. Very, very fun just to kind of stylize in the logo. What Pokemon for each of our games do you think would be a cool logo-esque Pokemon? Joe, you already had to answer this question, so maybe it's changed for you, but what would you say for VGC? Well, like if it said VGC and it had an epic logo, what would the Pokemon be?
So first of all, Sierra says hi. She wanted to make sure that I got the shout out on the podcast.
She's probably just gonna roast me again.
I do remember the context of what you're talking about. It was the new season reveal for anyone who doesn't know, and they had they had the 4 different Ogerpon forms with the 4 different games and going throughout the whole season and stuff like that. And I said Ogerpon could be like the competitive Pokemon mascot or something. You see an image of Ogerpon, it's friendly, there's different, different designs and colors and stuff. Like that could be the idea. Like you see Pikachu, that's Pokemon, but if you see Ogerpon, that is competitive Pokemon, right? Sierra didn't like that answer. She doesn't like a lot of things I say. So, but that was for Pokemon as a whole.
Okay, great. It's a great Oko gag, by the way. I love that gag that you guys have that running bit where she never likes her.
Yeah, that running bit where she like can't stand the thing about me. Yeah,
that's my favorite bit.
Specifically with VGC, my answer it's got to be Pachirisu. I think you can do either an image of the Pachirisu, or I would do like the follow me, having the finger in the air with like the sparks next to it as he followed me the Draco Meteor away. I think either Patchy or the follow me, the finger would be the logo.
Okay. Yeah, they use that for that classic kind of hype reel with the statues. Love it. Love
that was great.
It was really good. Okay. Caleb or Scarzig, do either of you have an answer?
I was thinking about TCG. It's a bit generic, but I think it's Charizard. Very recognizable Pokemon, very recognizable silhouette, and just for TCG history, one of the most sought after and collectible Pokemon cards. Yeah. If we went pound for pound viability and just wanted to take a Pokemon from that, it might be Sableye. I'm not as seasoned when it comes to long-term history the way other casters like Kyle or Chip would be. But I think I wouldn't mind Charizard being like the mascot of Pokemon TCG competitive.
That makes a ton of sense to me. I think I'm like fully on board with the Charizard, especially if it's like base set silhouette too.
Yeah, if you went with the Sugimori pose.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so sick.
We've all seen that Pawn Stars episode, right?
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Shout out Dat Boy Muck for the raid, by the way. Yeah. Welcome in. Okay, Caleb, how about you for Go? Have you thought on this at all?
Yeah, so I think in terms of like viability in the championship series format, it'd probably be a Azumarill. It's been around since it's been around since like the very beginning of PvP, like back in December 2018 when it dropped. Like I was just like, how the heck do you beat this thing, right? Like, cause it was just like destroying me even on like the first week it came out, or PvP came out, and it's still like easily one of the best Pokemon in Great League. It's just so bulky and has such great coverage.
I love that.
So I'd probably go with that. Obviously, another argument you could make kind of like Scarzig throwing out Sableye there, is Dragonite, because it's one of the few Pokemon, maybe the only Pokemon, that has utility in every single league, Great League, Ultra League, and Master League. And who knows, down the road, maybe there'll be other leagues involved in the Championship Series, but it is really strong in all three, which is...
podcast. It's crazy.
No, that's just my speculation. No,
Fire this man, NBA.
This is not anything confirmed. That's just my own guess.
Okay.
But
all right, no, I like it.
It would probably be Dragonite, which would be cool too, and I think a fan favorite for many people as well. Maybe not as fan favorite as Charizard, but Dragonite's still pretty popular, I would say.
I feel like just the way that it kind of works, if we think about all the other sports, like it is very focused on the competition itself, not necessarily the game of basketball or something for the NBA. So I think Azumarill is like the good choice there. I think it just fits, right? Yeah. You got to focus in on the league that is played at the competitive level. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pissed at chat because they took my answer. Hoopa is the perfect. Hoopa is so perfect. Yeah. The goal zone circle, the goal with the little rings. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
What about Cinderace? Like you could dunk it in a little bit. It kind of looks like the NBA logo.
Yeah, no. Honestly, Cinderace is not a bad silver medalist in this conversation from base set release.
Mm-hmm.
With the Pokemon that appears in the middle, it went from Zapdos, now it's Rayquaza.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say Rayquaza.
I was going to say Ray was my answer.
Me too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I'm just split on it because there's two. And everything else is like a player, The NBA doesn't have a basketball hoop in the middle. But
well,
all the logos do. Every team, like 28 of the 30 NBA team logos have a basketball.
Sports guy, get him.
All right.
My other answer for Unite was the logo should be my teammates not coming bot at 7 minutes.
Okay.
Someone else said Cramorant getting KO'd. Well, I said someone said Cram, and then I said Cram getting KO'd.
Yeah.
Should be the logo.
I don't know why. This isn't in for any of you. Every Pokemon preview that we've ever had where they debut a new release, it's always just highlight reels of them knocking Cram out. Again and again and again. Someone at Timmy hates Cramorant. They're just getting their behind beat every time. It is wild. Okay, awesome. I think we all come with some good answers. Ray is very good too. I will give it to you. It also might work with but Hoopa works well with the purple colors. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm biased. I like Hoopa.
Okay, Bridget and I are sticking to the Hoopa trend, and I know Dupe Snacks would be pumped about the Hoopa pick as well. We're Overdunk is aligned here. Awesome. Okay, well, I think that brings us to the end of our episode. Let's do a quick round of plugs. Everybody, the sell out, shout out, whatever you would like to do. Stage is yours for each of you. So, Caleb Peng, how about you? Where can people find you, and anything to plug?
Yeah, just Caleb Peng on all socials except for TikTok. Kind of like Scarzig, I missed the boat on TikTok, so I'm Caleb Peng 1. I've been
not the one.
Yeah, I know. The
one.
person that does own Caleb Peng is someone in Africa, I believe. I've been messaging him a couple times, and he responds once in a while, but he has not given up the account yet.
Okay.
But we're in the talks. Maybe in the future.
I like it.
But yeah, that's about that for me. And then when we have our own podcast for Pokemon Go, it's called the Battle Cats with a Z in the end. Podcast, and once in a while we'll do bets, which is why my hair was bleached for like a couple months because I lost a bet. That was not a fun time. But
a fun time for me and everybody who watched your show. It was a good bet.
For sure. And maybe catch me on occasional Grassroots Unite stream here or there commentating. And, just get a Penta KO for me. That's all I want to cast.
It's the best.
I haven't gotten it yet, but
it's a high I've been chasing ever since it happens.
Yes.
Scarzig, how about you? Where can people find you, and anything to plug?
You can find me on YouTube, Scarzig. I'll be uploading a lot more footage for PTCGL, hopefully here soon. You can find me on Twitter, and I've been doing a lot of YouTube thumbnails for some Pokemon channels, and I'll be kind of hush. I'll be maybe taking some art commissions. So if you maybe want to have some Pokemon artwork done, that's kind of become my claim to fame. So hopefully I'll have the bandwidth. If you are curious about that, just reach out to me on Twitter, and maybe we'll talk on that angle. But appreciate y'all. And that's pretty much it. And looking forward to seeing me on hopefully some other games,
Ooh, okay. Lots of teases from Scarzig today. I love it. Xeminan, how about you? Where can people find you? And all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Twitch as well at Xeminan, Xeminan. I also have a podcast for competitive VGC called the OCO Podcast. Me and my co-host Sierra Dawn, one of our co-casters. We upload every Thursday at noon, except sometimes when it doesn't happen. But for the most part, it does.
Can't relate.
You guys have an upload time? That's crazy.
Yeah. Sometimes it's 1 o'clock, sometimes it's 3 o'clock, sometimes it's Friday. It happens. But it is typically Thursdays at noon that we'll have another.
Yeah, you're among good company right now. So don't worry. We're all there. We're all there with you. Okay, awesome. Make sure to go follow all these people. Bridjet, unfortunately, Doofsex is not here to shout out your Twitter, and I don't know how to spell it, so where can people find you online?
It's a big Bridjet. How could you forget?
I know.
It's so obvious. It's so obvious.
All right, big Bridjet on Twitter for you. I think for Unite Mike's plugs, the only thing I'm at Zoinks on Twitter, but the only big thing is mark your calendars. We've now locked in a date, October 19th. We are running back the Unite Mike's Charity Classic. This is a 16-hour stream that we're doing for the second year in a row. For a different charity. We did the Maui Food Bank last year. This year, we're going to do an awesome organization that I really love called Hope for the Day. We're going to be working with them to do a big stream, and there is always a big Unite tournament as a part of it. Last year, I think both Caleb Peng and Xeminan, you were both playing some Unite with us post-tournament, which was so much fun. We're going to be running back some of those caster customs, so be on the lookout. But October 19th, be there or be square. It's going to be an awesome event. We're going to have a lot more announcements coming out very soon. And Unite Mike's is making another unique merch item. I'm not saying what it is.
Ooh.
We have another unique merch item.
Not the unique merch item.
Scarzig got to tease like 12 things. I'm going to tease one. All right. We will be back next episode. Hopefully we know what championship points to do in our game then. But until then, we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.